Welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast that's all about real conversations for real transformation. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, professional speaker, MC, and best-selling international author. Here, we tackle the tough stuff, the mud that we all have found ourselves in. We talk about the pivots, the challenges, and the victories that shape our lives and our businesses. From overcoming trauma and finding your voice to navigating life's unexpected twists, we get raw, honest, and open. You'll hear from inspiring guests who share their stories of resilience, healing, and growth. Whether it's breaking through emotional abuse, embracing self-worth, or thriving in entrepreneurship, you'll find connection, empowerment, and the tools to keep you moving forward. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for stories that hit home and conversations that make a difference. Let's get real together. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with me today. Oh, boy, do I have some news, some things to talk about. If you can't tell, I'm a little hyped up. If you're watching the video, you'll notice that I actually have a shirt that says TEDxMurfreesboro. So I don't even know where to start. I feel like I am floating on cloud nine. So if you are following my socials, and if you're not, you should be. But I have been really ramping up talking about TEDx Murfreesboro. So Murfreesboro is actually where I am located. If you're not familiar with where that at, I'm sure that everybody knows where Nashville, Tennessee is. So if you're like, oh, I know that place, that's the cowboy boots and where they do live music. You got it right. So I'm in Murfreesboro, which is about 25 to 30 minutes, kind of southeast of that area. So a really beautiful hub area that has been expanding exponentially over the last, few years, especially during COVID, which sounds crazy. But yeah, so we had the opportunity this year to do a TEDx in this space. Now, Nashville has hosted a TEDx before. It's an event that you can do once a year. You're not familiar with TEDx. First off, I need you to go Google it right now. Hop on your YouTube. You can find 10,000s and more of these TEDx talks. You'll also find TED, which actually is the main curator. TEDx is going to be the independently owned one. So they're under the TED branch. And basically, this is a space that was created to connect people, to create impact, to bring empowering, inspiring messages, to teach us things. And it is something now that happens across the globe. Yes, not just here in the United States, across the globe. And so people can apply for these licenses and can have these independently operated TEDx talks. So this is an event facilitation. It is a phenomenal event. If you've never been to one, do me a favor, Google TEDx in your area. I promise you will probably find one close. Go and attend one. It is a room full of energizing, amazing speakers and opportunities, community builders. There is a room full of people, and depending on how large that event is, there may be hundreds of people there. So we had a TEDx here in Murfreesboro this year for 2026. This is our first one in the Murfreesboro area. Now, I put out on my socials, and something I've been telling a lot of people is I actually didn't have TEDx laid out in my cards for 2026. I have had several people over the last year and a half that has asked me like, hey, have you ever thought about doing a TEDx talk? And I'm like, yeah, I have, but it's not one of those things that I'm hyper focused on. And the main reason for that was because TEDx is a big stage. And it's not that the stage scares me, but it's a simple fact that the application process can be very, very rigorous. If you look up some statistics and stuff, I think it's like 0.001% of the population even makes it to a TEDx stage. And in that is this application process that you have to send your information in to a TEDx curator who is looking to get their stage set up, whether it's the first year or a continued year. In that application process, there can be a lot of rigorous questions, a lot of do you do this? How do you do this? Are you going to inspire the crowd? Can you share with us what it is that you speak about? Can you share what you've talked about before? And from my understanding, and don't quote me on this because I could be completely wrong, but from my understanding and some of the people that I've talked with and things like that, most people that are searching to be on a TEDx stage as a speaker are putting in 99 applications before they get approved. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? And so, in the space that I was in, or thought I was in, currently in my field of work and what I was doing, TEDx was definitely something I knew I wanted to do because not only is this a space where you share a stage with other amazing individuals, where you get to share your message to the community and those that are attending live, but you have to apologize, my nose is driving me crazy. I'm glad my sinuses held off until after the speech. But once you do your talk with TEDx and the production is sent to them and they approve it, that video then is put out on their YouTube channel and it is out for the world to see. People have the ability to search for your talk, or let's say they're searching for things that you are talking on, and your talk might pop up and it could inspire and it could change lives. So I knew that this was something that I wanted to do, right? To be able to create impact on a broad scale. And what better than TEDx? And I knew that I wasn't in a space that I was ready to just be bombarded with the no's that I might get from the application process. It's not that I'm not very secure in my speech or what I know, what it is that I know I have to offer. But each one of these TEDx platforms are independently operated. So there is a curator that has their own set of rules and their own set of ways of doing things, and they know exactly kind of what they're looking for or what they want in someone. And I might not fit that mold, right? So it doesn't matter how much impact and how much goodness I can tell them that I want to do and what I want to share. It has to match with what they are looking for. And they also have to have some locals come into their space. And so, what I mean by that is TEDx can have others come from outside the state into it, but TEDx itself requires that you also have some local people as well, because that's kind of part of the reason for facilitating it in your space is to bring that connection and that community and grow your area while also uplifting those that are in your area, right? So, it's a huge process. Like I said, the curators have a lot to do and be a part of and have to deal with themselves. And so I often found myself telling people, I would absolutely love to do a TEDx. I would love to be able to put that message out there. And I believe that it will come when it is supposed to, that my application process will not be as rigorous, or it won't stress me out. I know that I'll be in a space where this is the time for my message to be heard. And I said, so when I feel like that has come along, I will by all means make sure that I put myself out there and put that application in. But until I feel like that comes to a head, we're going to let it rest, because one of the things that I did not want to do, and especially over the last year and a half with all the talking that I have been doing, is stress myself out with another application that says no and put all that time and effort into putting in that application and giving them exactly what they want, just to have to redo it again. Now, that is a choice. All of us have that choice, right? And some people do that. They are so ready to give that TEDx that they put that application in and they wait until they get that yes. And I 100% applaud those that do that. That is a lot of time, that is a lot of effort, that is a lot of dedication. So kudos to you. For me, that's not how I wanted my adventure and my way be when I did this. So I kind of already had it envisioned in my brain, right? And so I was like, I'm going to let it come to me. Well, wouldn't you know that lo and behold, I was scrolling on Facebook one evening and I had a random message pop up on my Facebook. And it was a gentleman that I know because of my son. Um, I've never really met him. I've been a part of a couple of things. We've crossed paths when we were in the real estate industry, but I knew of him because his son knew my son. And they were in high school together a few years ago. Can't believe I'm saying that. It's a few years ago. And I never see his post, never. And I saw this post that said, hey, we are hosting a TEDx right here in Murfreesboro, and we are looking for applicants. We have a few open spots left. And if you're interested, send me a message. Let's connect. And I thought, you have got to be kidding me. Here I am telling everyone that I don't really want to travel for it. So I'm going to wait till something a little bit closer happens. I'd actually looked on our TEDx Nashville and it didn't look like they had anything coming up. I'd actually reached out to a couple people to see what they were doing and didn't get anything about anything happening. So I thought, you know what? We'll lay it to rest and it'll happen when it's supposed to. So when I saw this post while I was scrolling through, I thought, well, this is it. This is it. This is what I asked for. And what better place to have it, but in the area that I live, in the space that I talk the most, and with a community that I think is really going to be captivated by my message. And I felt like this is the time to share it. So I reached out, I put in the application, I did all of the work, and in December, I got the go ahead that I would be a TEDx speaker. Talk about an amazing birthday present because my birthday is at the end of November and a wonderful Christmas gift right before the holidays. However, I couldn't tell anybody because they hadn't made the announcement. So I had to wait until January before we could actually start telling people that we were a part of it. I was bubbling inside to know that this was the moment. Now I get to create and craft something that not only is going to share parts of my story, but is going to be able to connect with everyone on a singular level. Because we were talking about judgment, something that I know every single one of us has faced, is facing, and is going to face now and in the foreseeable future. And so it really is interesting in the process of a TEDx and all of the things that go into this. And I really poured my heart into my message because I wanted not only the local people to be able to be inspired and feel like they felt something and that they could do something different, but I know that that message is going to get out to the world and it's going to be able to make a greater impact. Now, I know you're probably wondering, okay, Kat, that's great. Like, that's awesome. I'm gonna go look it up now. But like, what does this mean? What did you talk about? What are all the details? Give me it before I press skip and I head on to the next episode of something else, right? Stay with me. My TEDx talk was on judgment. The name of my talk is What Judgment Takes from Us and What Courage Gives Back. Now, if you've been following the podcast for a little bit, there's been a couple of solo episodes I've done before where I really go into the definitions of the words that we use on a regular basis. So things like strength and confidence, because as a society, we have our own definitions that we use, right? Strength is one of those that is used tremendously, right? Oh my gosh, you're so strong. You're so brave. Congratulations on that. That must have took so much guts. You must have had such immense strength to get through this or to get here. However, the word strength is the capacity to exert or withstand force. Yet we have broadened that term to use it in many arenas. And we do this with many terms every single day. And it's kind of just become an understood language that's not really in the dictionary, right? For me, when I was coming out of my abusive relationship, words really did have a dent on me as an individual. And I'm sure that you probably have a word that you have used or that people have used to describe you or tell you something that as soon as you heard it, you're like, oh, please. I hate that word. Or it just didn't resonate with you, right? Maybe you had a word that somebody used and immediately you felt it and you felt so disconnected, you're like, great. So I'm this instead. And so I challenged the audience to understand these words at their core. It is one of the reasons why I use courage so intentionally, because courage to me is a choice. Courage is the willingness to face the adversity, fear, or uncertainty right there in front of you. You get to choose courage. And for that, I love that word. When I'm having a hard time or when I see somebody else that is struggling, I tell them, wow, that is tremendous courage that you have. You are a courageous individual because they are choosing to face that difficult, that fear right there in front of them. And sometimes, even though we have the saying that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, I think that's kind of a crock of bullshit. Words have a huge impact on how we speak to ourselves, how we speak to others, and how we intake the information that comes back to us. Words hold so much more than I think we give them credit for. And it's why I now really try to pay attention to the words that I use or the words that I say to others. And I also pay attention to the words that come back to me. And I really look at, do I feel like I agree with that? Do I feel like that resonates with me? Did that make me feel sick to my stomach, or did I really feel energized when somebody called me that? And so one of the things that I did was I thought, you know what? Let's go back to the original definitions. Let's start defining what these words mean so that when we choose to use those words, we understand the catapult that is behind it. We understand the energy and the force, and we just might also see how it might impact the person or people in front of us when we choose to use those words. And so judgment is one that I wish that we talked about more. We talk about resiliency, we talk about boundaries, we talk about having our own standards. But judgment is something that at our core, we can all relate to. Let me give you the opening lines to my TEDx and see what comes from it. Several years ago, I was standing in my kitchen when my world was flipped. I was arguing with my son. He was about 14 at the time. And we were both yelling, voices raised, emotions high. And then I did something that made me shiver. I stepped closer to him. We were now eye to eye. I had realized he had grown tall enough to be my height. I stepped closer to him, but not as his mother, as if I was preparing to fight, as if I was defending myself from a stranger. And that's when I saw it. The look of fear and anger in his eyes. This is my son. I realized in that moment I was becoming the very person that I hated, the man that I had tried to protect my children from for years. I was becoming. The cycle I thought I had broken, I was recreating right there in my kitchen. How could I expect my boys to be any different if I wasn't willing to change myself? I was literally showing them how to act. Now, the question for you to ponder on is, were you just judging me? Made you think, didn't I? How many times have we heard the beginning of somebody's story or heard a conversation when we're standing next to someone and we only hear bits and pieces and immediately we make a judgment? But we don't know exactly what that person has been through. We don't know what they have suffered, what they have dealt with. We don't know what they were handed when they were a child or through their entire life. But we immediately judge them. Even worse, we judge ourselves. One of the things I talk about in my episode or in my TEDx talk is I heard this quote listening to a podcast, and someone said, "Be careful how you judge others, because what you judge outward, you also judge within." And boy, that one hit me because I believe that that is something we have all done, right? We judge ourselves and we judge others constantly. And you may not be as bad at it now as you were back then, which is great. But we allow our brains to create our stories. Here's what I mean. Our brains hate gaps. So when it doesn't have all the information, it'll fill in the blanks. It needs that complete picture. So it makes one up. And when it does that, that made up story is filled with our fears and our judgments. Think about that one for a second. What you judge outward, you also judge within, whether you realize it or not. But here's the great news. We have the ability to change that. We can shift those thoughts. You can choose to say something kind right after. This can be about yourself or it can be about others, but you can give yourself grace. You can give yourself space. Have you ever told yourself, "Oh, I'm a mess"? How about, "No, I am doing the best I can"? What about, "Oh, I'm a failure"? Ooh, I know some people have said that one. What about, "No, I am learning and growing"? It sounds a little fishy, right? Sounds a little forced. But what's interesting is slowly things begin to shift. And this is something that I realized in my own life years ago. And when I did, I recognized this pattern, this framework. And I talk about this during my TEDx. Three simple words I call the three C's: courage, curiosity, connection. These words became my compass for overcoming the judgments of myself, not just toward myself, but also within the outside world. Now, like I talked about earlier, I am really big on defining these terms, right? Oh, so you best believe I talk about that during my TED Talk. Because the reason I use these words are also because of the meanings that they have behind them. Remember, I talked about courage, which is the willingness to face the adversity, fear, or uncertainty. Well, curiosity to me is the next step. Because once you become courageous enough to face that adversity or that fear or change something in your life, curiosity becomes that next step. Because curiosity is the desire to want to know or understand something. Now, this can actually take you out of a space of judgment and into a space of truly listening because you're deciding in that moment to put the other thing first. Think about it in conversations. How many times have you talked to someone, but instead of you actually listening to what they're saying, you're already making assumptions, you're planning your response, you are filling in those blanks? Uh-huh. I know you're nodding your head. I still do it too, and I have to catch myself. So, what I do is I ask a lot of questions. Just ask my boys or my husband. It's a lot. But I do it to make sure that I am getting the full story. I ask the questions instead of making the assumptions because I want to understand. And when you do that, you actually retrain your brain so that it stops making the assumptions first. It starts prompting the questions because it's wanting to know the answers. It's like, yes, give it to me. Let me fill in the blanks. Let me get that whole picture, right? Because that's what the brain is looking for. Curiosity is amazing when you can use it in this regard. I used it when I was talking to my kids. I started using it when my husband and I would speak about certain things because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't allowing those old assumptions, those old beliefs to come forward and crash into the new ones. But you got to ask the questions instead of making the assumptions. Now, what's really cool about that is once you start using courage and then you take that curiosity into it, those two bridge together is what forms connections. Connections is the link between people, things, or ideas. It becomes a shared bond, and it really is a true means of communication. Here's the cool part. Connection comes from a neutral space. It sees nothing as inherently good or bad. It's just here to listen and understand. But it also makes space for the lived story. So when you have all three of those things working together, that is how we communicate different. That is how we let go of judgments, not just within the outside world, but also within yourself. And here's the cool thing. When you begin not to judge as much outward, you'll notice that those judgments start to go away with yourself as well. It becomes a two-way street. It's really cool. What you're really doing is you are taking the neurons within your brain. It's called neuroplasticity. And you are breaking the old patterns apart and you are feeding that neuron to the new one. Once you make that connection, the brain becomes rewired. Yes, you have the ability to rewire your thoughts, to rewire your habits, to rewire how you perceive yourself and the world. How freaking cool is that? 3 simple words: courage, curiosity, connection. This is how we bridge the gaps and open the space for different perspectives. This world is not meant to have us agree with everything. We are here to choose to truly see each other. This world is meant to be different. It's meant to have innovation and disagreements, to see and hear different perspectives. That is how we grow. We don't grow by being the same. Nothing comes out of being the same. It's just the same repeated cycle over and over and over again. But when you can shift your own thoughts, your own judgments, and you can learn to open yourself up, you allow new beginnings, you allow new identities, and you allow growth. within yourself. And that becomes a ripple effect across the world. Because you see, when we're just judging and we think we're keeping it contained, we're not. It leaks out and it poisons everything around us. It's the same thing when you decide to shift those thoughts, to say something kind right after, to lead with that curiosity and courage and choose to do something different. That begins to ripple out to those around you as well. I know this because I've seen it. It happened with my kids and the bond that got created by me being open and vulnerable. I got to see it in communication with my husband and how we talk about and have become open about things. I have seen it with law enforcement in the ways that I came in and shared parts of my story. Yes, those that I was ashamed of. And I got to watch them lean in without judgment because they wanted to understand, not just respond. And that's what we as individuals have to get to. The want to know and understand, not just respond. This is how we allow the judgments to break down. But it does take hard work. It does take consistency. It does take you choosing to want to do something different. Now, just to be clear, consistency does not mean every single day, day in and day out. And if I didn't do it, I'm a failure. No, absolutely not. Consistency means that you continue to show up. Maybe you start with something small like I did. For me, it was in the car because I had a lot of road rage. And so every time that something happened, somebody cut me off, got too close to me, didn't stop at a red light, stopped at a red light, stopped at a yellow light, whatever that might look like that frustrated me. And I would find myself saying, oh, so stupid. Oh my God, what are they doing? I would immediately catch myself and I'd say, oh, you know what? I don't know what's going on in their personal life. I hope they have a better day. Now, it does feel forced at first, almost like you're performing for yourself, but I promise it works. I still use this to this day. I have used those 3 C's to help overcome the judgments that have kept me stuck for years. But it begins with you. You have to choose to do something different. And again, there will be times that you will fall off the horse. There will be times that you completely forgot to use the tools in your toolkit. Do me a favor. In that moment, be kind to yourself because you're human. You're meant to screw up. You're not perfect. You are you. And that's the beauty of being human. The bigger thing is when you fall off the horse or say something rude and you're like, dang it, I forgot to correct myself. Well, I mean, you can do it right then and there when you notice it. And if you don't, then you come home later and you're like, man, I could have done better. Great. Congratulations. You recognized what you need to work on. That is where it starts. And you can start that over and over and over again. And guess what? It doesn't make you a failure because you are continuing to try. You are continuing to push forward. You are using that choice to face that difficult right there in front of you. I truly believe that we only become failures when we decide to completely quit and give up. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some things we need to quit, and there are some things we need to give up. That doesn't make you a failure in that instance, right? I'm talking about the moments when you're really hard on yourself. Here's an example. You decide that you're going to start going to the gym. I got this. I'm going to go 4 days a week and I'm going to get to it. I'm going to eat better, so on and so forth. Week 1, you do great. Week 2, you do great. Week 3, something happens. Family matters, personal matters, feel like crap, whatever it may be. You make it to the gym 2 times a week. Now you have a choice. In that moment, you can choose to tell yourself how stupid, how horrible you are. You're not consistent. You don't know how to do things. You're a complete failure. Or you can choose to say, damn, I missed those other days. It's okay. I still made 2. I'm proud of myself for at least committing to that. Life happens. But guess what? Next week, I'm going to do better. Get back on my 4 days again. That is consistency. That is the choice. That is you choosing to continue to press forward. That is what life is about. It's not about being perfect. And honestly, if we look at the definition of perfection in a societal term, we use perfect for everything. You ever seen a waterfall and been like, oh my gosh, it is perfect? Or seen mountains and you're like, oh my God, look how beautiful and perfectly aligned they are across this scene. But guess what? They're not perfect triangles. There's some bigger and some smaller and some that look more like a hump than an actual triangle. And, some might have some cracks in it. But do you see how your definition of perfect for that is more about the beauty of it? That's what I challenge you to use the word perfect for when you speak about yourself or others. Find the beauty in the imperfections. Because again, we're human. That's what we do. And to be honest, who would want to be perfect? It would just be the same thing over and over and over again. You wouldn't learn anything. You would just be where you're at. You don't learn in comfortability. We grow in the things that scare us, that challenge us. Our lessons come from our failures, our screw ups, the mistakes. Do you think the plane was built the first time? They're like, yep, this is it. We're good. Good to go. It is perfect. Abso-freaking-lutely not. But guess what? Every time that they failed, every time that they screwed up, it taught them what to do and what not to do, which is why we fly in the skies today. So you get to choose. You get to choose every single day on how you think, on how you're going to act, on how you're going to treat others, and how you're going to treat yourself. Don't let judgment ruin those choices. Choose to do something different. 3 C's: courage, curiosity, connection. Let these words be your guidance on your journey of life. Because we don't always have strength. I know I didn't. There were so many times in my life where I wanted to just give up, let go, let the darkness creep in. But in those moments, you still have a choice. Whatever it is that you choose, that leads you down the road of life. So pay attention to those choices. And don't get me wrong, I have bad days, I have bad moments, I have times where I judge the hell out of myself. And I'm like, all right, this is it. We're done for today. I'm going to take everything off my plate. I'm going to go to bed early. I'm going to start over tomorrow. That is normal. Please understand that. Just because it sounds like I have it all together doesn't mean that my world is a perfect, beautiful butterfly sanctuary. I still cry in moments of harshness to myself. I still feel like I'm not doing enough on occasion. I still feel like I could do better, or I'm not pushing myself hard enough. That is normal. Every single one of us feels that on a regular basis. I don't care what you've been through. I don't care about how successful you are. You still have those moments. You just might not hear about it publicly as much because nowadays everybody likes to share the good stuff. I'm here to sit with you in the mud. So reach out to me, DM me if you're having a shitty day. I have a few minutes. I can always listen. And sometimes that's all that you need. Sometimes just getting it out and knowing that somebody heard it can shift your whole perspective of your day. But choose how you're going to handle your life. Choose how you're going to take that next step. Learn to let go of that judgment. Like I said, you will hear it, you will feel it. That's totally okay. When that happens, become aware of it. Choose to correct it. Say something kind right after. That's all you need. That is you making the choice to continue to push forward. And I congratulate you on that. I don't care if it's as small as I decided to get up today and make my bed, even though I am feeling depressed. Congratulations. I'm proud of you. Celebrate the small wins for you. I had someone once tell me, as I paused in the middle of sharing my story, and I said, I know that people have had it harder, so much harder. And this person said, please don't compare your story to others. Your story is yours. That has stuck with me over the last few years because so many times we compare ourselves to everyone. You are on your own timeline, and your timeline does not need to match up with anybody else's because no one has the exact same story you do. They might not have the same childhood. They may not have had the same difficult situations that you did at whatever chance and time that you did. And that is what makes us different. So stop living by everybody else's timeline. Stop judging yourself because somebody else at the same age has made it further than you. Who cares? Because their story isn't yours. Stop comparing yourself to others. I challenge you as you are listening here today to use my 3 C's: courage, curiosity, connection. Use these 3 C's in a conversation this week. Just one. Just choose one. Use that courage to step into that conversation. Get curious instead of making assumptions, and watch what kind of connection gets created. You might be surprised. 2, become aware of your judgments, not just toward the outside world, but also to yourself. And in that moment, become aware of it. Choose to correct it. Say something kind right after. I know it will feel forced at first, but I promise it works. We must begin to heal ourselves before we can cause a ripple effect that could help heal others. And letting go of judgment is one of those first steps. But it begins with a choice. So I encourage you to be aware of the choices that you make today and moving forward. Because when we choose to face the difficult, to step into the unknown, we are choosing to stand and lean into the courage that lies within us all. You have that courage. You have always had it. Now, you just have to choose to use it. So think on that. What will you choose to do differently? Where can you choose to be courageous? How can you lean into the 3 C's to make an impact on your life and those around you? Use courage, choose curiosity, and watch the connection that gets made. Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. If you are loving this and you're interested in watching my TEDx talk, I would so appreciate if you would take a listen. We will be dropping the YouTube link as soon as it goes live, so be sure to check the show notes, or you can hop over to the YouTube channel. We will also make sure it is there as well. It's only about 15 minutes, and I would love for you to not only listen to it, but comment on it. Tell me your takeaways. Share with me the things that you have been through. What have you judged yourself on? Let's have a conversation. I'm not just looking for a comment for you to tell me how amazing it is. Let's chat. That's what this podcast and my Envision is all about. Real conversations with real people. Until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. Catch you later. Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Chat with Kat today, where real stories meet real solutions. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review on Apple, and share this with someone who may also need to hear this as well. Let's also keep the conversation going. Follow me on socials at The Lotus Effect, connect with our incredible guests, and remember, you are never alone. Your story matters, and you have the ability and the power to rewrite it. You always have a choice. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and keep showing up as the incredible, unstoppable